Have you ever tried to build a new habit, waking up early, working out, drinking more water, and found yourself quitting after just a few days? Yeah, me too. It's not that we're lazy. It's not that we lack motivation. It's just that we've been doing it all wrong. And in the book Tiny Habits, behavior scientist Dr. B.J. Fogg shows us a whole new way, a way that actually works. Not through willpower, not through grinding, but through something surprisingly small. Tiny, in fact. So in this video, we're diving deep into the powerful method of tiny habits. By the end, you'll know exactly how to design your life one small step at a time. And trust me, it's easier than you think. Stick around, because this isn't just another self-help idea. This is science-backed, real-world tested advice from the man who teaches behavior design at Stanford University. If you've struggled with motivation, routines, or even just getting started, you're about to have a breakthrough. And hey, if you find this helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Let's grow together. Alright, let's begin. B.J. Fogg is a behavior scientist who's spent years studying how people change. He's not just throwing around feel-good quotes, he's created real systems that are used by tech companies and productivity coaches all over the world. In his book Tiny Habits, he argues that we've all been making one critical mistake. When trying to build new habits, we go too big, too fast. Think about the last time you tried to start something new. Maybe it was, I'm going to run 5 miles every day, or I'll stop eating sugar completely. Starting Monday. That's the usual mindset, right? Go hard or go home. But that approach often leads to burnout, shame, and giving up. Fogg's approach flips that on its head. Instead of trying to change your life overnight, he says start small. So small it feels almost silly. Want to floss your teeth every night? Don't start with all of them. Just start by flossing one tooth. That's it. Want to do push-ups daily? Start with 2, or even 1. Just 1. That's how tiny habits are born. Now, you might be thinking, how does flossing one tooth or doing 1 push-up lead to real change? Great question. The answer lies in momentum and identity. When you do something small, consistently, and feel good about it, it starts to shift how you see yourself. You go from someone who wants to build habits to someone who shows up every day. That shift in identity is powerful, because once you start seeing yourself as someone who takes action, it becomes easier to build on that action. Here's the trick though, success doesn't come from intensity. It comes from consistency. B.J. Fogg's formula is built around 3 simple parts: anchor, behavior, celebration. Let's break that down. The anchor is the thing in your day that's already happening, something reliable. It could be brushing your teeth, starting the coffee machine, or putting on your shoes. You use that as the cue for your new habit. The behavior is the new tiny habit. You want to start something super small, super doable, and fast. Like 1 squat, 1 deep breath, 1 compliment to your partner. The smaller the better. Then comes celebration. This is the secret sauce. After you do the behavior, you immediately celebrate. You smile, pump your fist, say yes, or even do a little dance. Why? Because emotions create habits. When your brain feels good, it wants to repeat what caused that feeling. So celebrating helps lock in the habit emotionally. Let me give you an example. Let's say you want to build the habit of doing push-ups. The tiny version of that is 1 push-up. Now choose an anchor, let's say after you brush your teeth in the morning. So your formula is, after I brush my teeth, I will do 1 push-up. Then I'll smile and say, I'm strong. That's it. That's the habit. You don't have to stick to 1 push-up forever. You can always do more if you want, but the key is that you don't have to. You've set the bar so low that it's almost impossible to fail. That's the genius behind it. B.J. Fogg explains that motivation is unreliable. We think we'll always be motivated, but life gets in the way. You're tired, you're stressed, you're busy, motivation disappears. But if your habit is tiny, you don't need motivation to do it. That's why tiny beats tough. The beauty of this system is that it grows naturally. You might start with 1 push-up, but after a few weeks, you might find yourself doing 5, then 10. You didn't force it. It just happened. Because once you're in motion, it's easy to keep going. This is how habits grow organically. Like a plant, You don't yank it out of the ground to make it grow faster. You water it, give it sunlight. Let it take root. Tiny habits are like those seeds. Planted in the right place, they bloom. And here's something most people don't realize: your environment plays a huge role. BJ Fogg emphasizes that if you want to build good habits, make them easy to do, reduce friction. Want to eat healthier? Put a bowl of fruit on the counter. Want to write more? Keep a notebook on your pillow. Want to drink more water? Keep a bottle right next to your keyboard. Design your space so the habit is the obvious choice. That's another lesson Fogg teaches. Don't rely on discipline, design your life for success. Now that you understand the foundation, anchor, behavior, and celebration, let's go a little deeper into what actually makes this method so powerful. See, BJ Fogg doesn't just teach habits, he teaches behavior design. That means he focuses on how our actions are shaped by our environment, our emotions, and the systems around us, not just our intentions. And here's where things get interesting. According to Dr. Fogg, emotions create habits, not repetition. This goes completely against the old advice that says just repeat something for 21 or 30 days and it'll become a habit. But science doesn't back that up. Fogg says that if a habit feels good, you'll want to do it again. But if it feels like a chore, even if you do it 100 times, you probably won't stick with it. So let's think about that. What's something you've been trying to build as a habit that you secretly dread? Maybe waking up early to run, or forcing yourself to meditate for 30 minutes straight. Even if you manage to push through a few days, it never really feels enjoyable. That's the problem. When something feels bad, your brain doesn't want to return to it. But what if instead you made it feel good? Let's say instead of running 3 miles, you just put on your sneakers and walk to the mailbox, or you step outside and take a deep breath of fresh air. You're still moving in the right direction, but you're doing it in a way that feels easy, achievable, and most importantly, positive. That's how habits stick, by creating a positive emotion around them. And this is where celebration becomes a superpower. It may feel awkward at first, smiling to yourself, clapping your hands, or saying, "Yes, I'm doing it," after doing something small. But what you're really doing is giving your brain a reward signal, and the brain learns to chase that feeling. It wants to recreate that emotional win. So the key takeaway here is this: don't wait to feel proud. Create pride in the moment. No matter how tiny the action is, treat it like a victory, because it is. You're showing up. And that's what matters. Now let's talk about motivation, because this is where most people crash and burn. You've probably had days where you were super motivated. You cleaned your room, did your laundry, cooked a healthy meal, read 5 chapters of a book, and then the next day, nothing, no energy, no drive, motivation disappeared. And Fogg says that's totally normal, because motivation is like a wave. It rises and falls. It's not a solid foundation for behavior. That's why he teaches people to design habits that don't require motivation. Instead, you build habits that are so easy, you can do them even when you're tired, stressed, or busy. Imagine this: you come home after a long day, and you promised yourself you'd work out, but you're exhausted. If your goal was a full 60-minute gym session, you'll probably skip it. But if your habit was just put on my workout shoes and do 1 squat, you can still win. You can still succeed. And success builds momentum. The more you succeed, the more your confidence grows. And this is one of the most beautiful things about the tiny habits method. It builds what Fogg calls success momentum. When you succeed at something small, you begin to believe in your ability to change, and that belief, that's what changes everything. Let me share a real example from the book. There's a woman named Molly who struggled with depression and low energy. She wanted to change her life, but everything felt overwhelming. So BJ Fogg helped her start with one tiny habit. After she went to the bathroom, she would say out loud, "It's going to be a great day." That's it. At first, it felt weird, but she did it anyway. Over time, that little phrase became part of her routine, and eventually, it started to change her mood. From there, she added more small habits: drinking water, opening the curtains, taking a walk. Bit by bit, her life started to shift. And it all started with one small habit, just a sentence, spoken in the bathroom mirror. That's the power of starting small. It removes the pressure. It removes the fear. And it allows you to begin even when everything feels hard. Here's another insight from the book that most people miss. It's okay to feel silly when you start. That's actually a good sign. BJ Fogg often says, if your habit feels ridiculously easy, you're doing it right. Because when something is too easy to fail, you're more likely to do it even on your worst day. Let's say your habit is writing. Don't make your habit write 1,000 words a day. Make your habit open my laptop and write one sentence. One sentence. If you write more, great. But if you don't, you still win. Or maybe you want to eat healthier. Don't say, I'll cook healthy meals every night. Start with, after I pour my coffee, I will put a piece of fruit on the counter. That's it. You're creating space for a bigger change to grow, but starting in a way that's doable now. And this brings us to another core part of Fogg's philosophy. You don't need to rely on willpower when your system is right. Most people try to will their way into better habits, but willpower is limited. It runs out. Systems don't. When your habits are tied to something you already do, your anchor, and they're tiny enough not to need motivation, and they feel good, you don't need willpower. You just follow the system. That's the shift. Instead of trying to force change through effort, you design change through structure. And maybe one of the most liberating ideas in this book is that you don't have to be perfect. Miss a day. That's fine. Tiny Habits is about planting lots of small seeds. Some will grow fast, some slowly, some might fade away. And that's okay. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is consistency, confidence, and momentum. The more you experiment, the more you'll learn what works for you. And the more you learn, the more control you gain over your behavior. That's what BJ Fogg calls behavior flexibility, the ability to adapt your habits based on your life. Not force your life to fit your habits. So if you're feeling stuck, discouraged, or overwhelmed by change, start tiny. Start ridiculously small. Start with something so easy you can't say no, and then celebrate the heck out of it. Because every step forward, no matter how tiny, is a win. That's the heart of the Tiny Habits method. And it's just getting started. So by now, you've learned that habits don't have to be big, painful, or require superhuman motivation. They can be small. So small they're almost invisible to anyone else. But here's the thing, those small steps can lead to massive changes over time. BJ Fogg calls this the ripple effect. And it's one of the most exciting parts of the Tiny Habits method. Here's how it works. When you start doing one good thing consistently, it makes you feel capable. You feel a little stronger, a little more in control, and then you naturally start doing more good things. Not because someone told you to, not because you made a list, but because that one tiny success boosted your confidence and changed how you see yourself. Let's take a real-world example. Suppose you start the tiny habit of saying, "Today's going to be a good day," right after you turn off your alarm. In the morning, that small moment shifts your mood, and because your mood feels lighter, maybe you drink a glass of water, then you stretch for 10 seconds, then you eat a better breakfast. All of that triggered by one tiny shift. That's the ripple effect in action. Fogg explains that behavior change is not about forcing discipline into every corner of your life. It's about creating positive emotion, positive identity, and positive momentum. When your habits come from a place of success, not shame, they stick. But let's be honest, even with tiny habits, sometimes we fall off. We forget, life happens. So what then? BJ Fogg gives us a powerful mindset shift. Missing a habit doesn't mean failure. It just means the system needs a little tweaking. Think of it like gardening. If a plant isn't growing, you don't yell at the plant. You check the sunlight. You check the soil. You adjust the water. You change the system. So let's say your habit is to read one sentence after you make coffee, but you keep forgetting. That's not a willpower problem. It's probably an anchor problem. Maybe coffee isn't the best cue because you're still sleepy. So try a different anchor. Maybe after you sit down at your desk, or after you open your laptop. A tiny tweak in timing can save the entire habit. This is a huge difference between the tiny habits method and old school habit advice. Most people think, if I can't stick to it, something's wrong with me. Fogg says, if you can't stick to it, something's wrong with the design, and design can always be improved. This makes the whole process feel safe. It takes away the guilt. You're not broken, you're just experimenting. Now let's talk about celebration again, because honestly, most people skip this step and it's the most important part. You might think, I don't need to celebrate flossing one tooth. That's silly. But listen, your brain needs that emotional signal. It needs to associate the habit with something good, something joyful, something worth repeating. BJ Fogg encourages people to try different types of celebration until one feels authentic. For some people, it's a fist pump. For others, it's a quiet yes. Some even do a little happy dance. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It matters what it feels like. That positive feeling cements the habit in your brain. So don't just go through the motions. Feel the win. Celebrate it. Make it matter even if it's small. Another thing Fogg brings up in the book is the idea of starter steps. These are not full habits, they're just the first micro movement toward something bigger. Let's say you want to declutter your house. That feels overwhelming, right? You don't start by cleaning the whole kitchen. You start by putting one plate in the dishwasher. That's a starter step. You're not committing to the whole process. You're just setting things in motion. And here's the twist: once you start, you often keep going. You load another plate, then another. Maybe you wipe the counter, but even if you don't, it's fine. You still win. Because you took the first step. Fogg compares this to a snowball at the top of a hill. The push is tiny, but once it starts rolling, it gains speed. It grows. Habits are like that. Your job isn't to build a mountain. Your job is to give the snowball a push. One of the most powerful things in tiny habits is the permission it gives you to start small, without guilt. In a world that celebrates grind and hustle, it's refreshing to hear someone say, "You're doing enough. Keep it tiny. Keep it going." And when people ask, is it really okay to do the bare minimum every day? BJ Fogg says, yes, because the bare minimum gets done, and done is better than perfect. Let's talk about another concept from the book that's a game changer: swarm of behaviors. This means instead of forcing yourself to find one perfect habit, you brainstorm a bunch of small things you could do to move toward your goal. Then you test them. For example, if your goal is to get more active, you don't just pick one habit like run every morning. That's rigid. Instead, you list a bunch of possible micro-actions. Walk for 1 minute, do 2 jumping jacks, stretch after sitting, take the stairs, park further away, stand up during phone calls. That's your swarm of behaviors. You're not stuck with one, you have options, and that flexibility makes success more likely. BJ Fogg teaches that when you build habits from a place of freedom, not pressure, you're more likely to keep going. You're more likely to enjoy the journey, and you're more likely to make lasting change. Now let's be real, life is messy. Some days you'll feel motivated, and some days you won't. Some weeks will go smoothly, and others will fall apart. The beauty of tiny habits is that they can survive chaos. Even on your worst day, you can do something small, and that keeps your identity intact. Fogg calls this the shine moment, that feeling you get when you show up for yourself, even when the world feels heavy. That sense of "I did it." You don't need a big achievement to feel shine. You just need to follow through on a small promise, and over time, that feeling becomes a new part of who you are. That's the ultimate goal of tiny habits, not just to do different things, but to become a different person. To go from "I want to be healthier" to "I'm the kind of person who makes healthy choices." From "I want to be productive" to "I'm the kind of person who takes action." From "I want to change" to "I am changing." And you get there one tiny step at a time. So don't underestimate the power of brushing one tooth, of doing one squat, of pouring one glass of water. These aren't just actions, they're votes for the future version of you. And when those votes stack up, your life starts to look different. You didn't force it, you designed it. That's the power of BJ Fogg's method. Tiny actions, big identity shift, massive results. By now, you've seen how the tiny habits method works on a personal level. One small action, one anchor, one celebration. Over time, this becomes not just a habit, but a reflection of who you are. But what really sets this method apart is how universal it is. It's not limited to just flossing, push-ups, or drinking water. You can apply this approach to almost every part of your life: your health, your relationships, your mindset, your work, your parenting. The principles stay the same. You anchor the habit to something you already do, make it so tiny it's almost effortless, and celebrate every win. Let's start with health. This is probably the most common area where people want to build better habits: eating better, moving more, sleeping well. And usually, people attack it with intensity: strict diets, long gym sessions, sleep overhauls. But as BJ Fogg teaches us, intensity rarely leads to consistency, and without consistency, there's no transformation. Imagine this: instead of saying, "I'm going to cook healthy meals every day," you create a tiny habit: after I turn on the stove, I will place a vegetable on the counter. Just that, just a visual prompt. That simple act creates a frictionless path toward healthier eating. And if that's all you do, that's still a win. Why? Because it keeps your habit alive. And that's what matters. Want to move more? Create a habit that says, "After I hang up a phone call, I will stretch for 5 seconds." Doesn't sound like much, but over time, that tiny moment becomes a cue for physical awareness, and eventually, stretching turns into walking into jogging, and so on without ever feeling forced. Now let's shift to relationships. Yes, even here, tiny habits apply. Want to strengthen your connection with a partner, your kids, or your friends? Don't wait for the right moment or big gestures. Start tiny. BJ Fogg shares a story about someone who wanted to feel closer to his wife. His tiny habit was, "After I brush my teeth at night, I will tell my wife something I appreciate about her." Just one sentence a day. It took seconds, but over time, it completely changed the tone of their relationship. It became a ritual of love, a routine of recognition. That's the power of small, intentional acts repeated consistently. Even saying something as simple as "I'm glad you're home" or "Thanks for being here" can become a daily habit that builds emotional closeness. You don't need fireworks to have a strong relationship. You just need daily sparks, tiny ones. Then there's mental well-being, probably the most overlooked area of habit formation. When people are stressed, anxious, or even depressed, the idea of fixing themselves feels overwhelming. But Fogg shows us that even the tiniest mental health habit can create profound change. One person in the book began a tiny habit of one deep breath. Just one. After closing a door, they would stop and take a breath. That's it. It didn't solve everything overnight, but it created space. Space to pause, to center, to remember they had control. And sometimes, especially in hard seasons of life, that's all we need. A moment of stillness, a sense of grounding. One deep breath, taken intentionally, can become a doorway into self-awareness, into peace. Another powerful mental habit is a phrase, "I'm doing the best I can." Try saying that after you finish a task or walk away from a tough conversation. You don't need to believe it 100% at first, but repeating it as a habit can slowly rewire your inner critic. The same applies to productivity and focus. You want to get more done. You don't need a fancy planner or a complicated system. You just need one small action repeated consistently. Let's say you want to write every day. Your habit could be, "After I open my laptop, I will write one sentence." That's it. Not a full blog post, not a chapter, just one sentence. And again, you're allowed to do more if you want. But even if you stop at one, you still won. You did what you said you would do. And that builds trust with yourself. You can also use the tiny habits method to manage distractions. Maybe every time you open a browser tab, you say out loud, "Do I need this?" That one question becomes a trigger for intentional focus. Over time, it reduces mindless clicking and helps you stay present. One of the most powerful things BJ Fogg says is this: habits are not the finish line. They're the starting point. This mindset changes everything. You stop thinking of habits as a destination and start seeing them as tools, as stepping stones, as gateways to a better version of yourself. let's talk about identity again. Because that's really the heart of this book. When you build tiny habits, you don't just change what you do, you change who you believe you are. If you consistently do one push-up a day, you start to think, I'm the kind of person who exercises. If you consistently say something kind to your partner, you start to believe, I'm a loving spouse. If you write one sentence a day, you believe, I'm a writer. It's not about faking it. It's about reinforcing the truth. One tiny action at a time. This is where people often miss the beauty of the method. They think it's about tricks or shortcuts. It's not. It's about designing a life that fits who you want to be, not by force, but by flow. And what's incredible is how fast this can happen. BJ Fogg has seen people change their mindset, their routines, even their entire lifestyle in a matter of weeks, not by grinding, not by suffering, but by creating a structure that makes good behavior natural. Now you might be wondering, what if I want to change a bad habit? Can this method work in reverse? Yes, it can, but Fogg doesn't focus on willpower here either. Instead, he suggests reducing friction, redesigning the environment, and replacing the behavior with something tiny but positive. Let's say you want to stop checking your phone in bed. You don't just say, I'll stop. Instead, you design a habit that says, after I plug in my phone, I will place it across the room. That one change makes the old behavior harder and the new behavior easier. Over time, it becomes your new normal. Or maybe you want to stop stress eating. Don't just try to quit cold turkey. Instead, create a tiny replacement habit. After I feel a craving, I will drink one sip of water. It doesn't block the emotion, but it gives you space. Space to choose. Space to respond, not react. That's what Fogg means when he says, you change best by feeling good, not by feeling bad. Shame doesn't build habits. Success does. And the final message in this section is this: you're already doing enough. Don't wait for the perfect plan. Don't wait to feel ready. Don't wait for a new month or a Monday. Start now. Start tiny. Start with one step. Then do it again tomorrow. And celebrate every time. Asterisk. So here we are, at the end of our journey through Tiny Habits by Dr. BJ Fogg. And if there's one thing I hope you take away, it's this: you don't need to change your entire life overnight. You don't need to become a completely different person next week. You just need to start small, so small that success becomes inevitable. One push-up, one sentence, one deep breath, one kind word, one little step repeated with intention, anchored to something you already do, and celebrated with genuine emotion. That's where real transformation begins. Dr. Fogg's message is loud and clear. You are not the problem. The system is. So when you build a system that's gentle, flexible, and encouraging, you stop fighting yourself. You stop failing and blaming. You start winning quietly, daily, and consistently. Whether your goal is to be healthier, happier, more productive, more connected, or more at peace, it all starts with a habit so small you could do it right now. So don't wait. Pick one thing, anchor it to something you already do, make it tiny, celebrate it, and then let it grow, because it will grow, you will grow, and soon, without even realizing it, you'll look back and see how far these tiny steps have taken you. That's the promise of tiny habits. And that's the truth behind real change. It starts small, but it never stays small. Thank you for spending this time with me. If you found this summary valuable, if something clicked with you, if you're feeling even just 1% more empowered right now, then here's your next tiny habit. Like this video, leave a comment with the habit you're starting today, and hit subscribe so you never miss another life-changing idea. Remember, growth isn't loud, it's quiet, consistent, gentle. But it's powerful. And it starts now with one tiny step. Asterisk. Take care. Till next video. Bye-bye.